He reached for my hand and said, "Say nothing. Just drive." At first, I thought he was joking. We had just picked up our coffee, cruising through the quiet back road on our way to my sister's cabin in Montana. But the way his fingers gripped mine, tight, cold, trembling, and the way his eyes locked onto the side mirror, it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I asked again, barely a whisper, "What's going on, Josh?" He didn't answer. Instead, he twisted around just enough to peek at the car behind us. A dark gray SUV. Tinted windows. It wasn't there a few minutes ago. That's when I noticed it too. It was following close. Too close. "Drive faster," he muttered, his voice shaking. "Whatever you do, don't stop. Don't pull over. Don't talk. Just drive like your life depends on it." Because it did. And that's when I realized, Josh knew who was in that car. But I didn't. Not yet. My name is Rachel Anderson. I grew up in a small town in Colorado. Quiet streets, nosy neighbors, and not a lot of drama. I had a simple life. I married my college sweetheart, Josh, when I was 25. He was calm, kind, and had that smile that made you forget everything else in the world. We moved into a modest home and lived like any regular couple. He was in software security, always traveling, always tapping away on his laptop late into the night. I was a school nurse. Life was routine, predictable, safe. Or so I thought. Everything started to shift 2 months ago. At first, it was subtle. Josh would come home later than usual, always tired and distant. He stopped talking about work, said he was under pressure. Then came the whispering phone calls in the garage. The sudden urge to leave town on weekends. I wasn't stupid. Something was wrong. But I didn't push. I wanted to trust him. Until that Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks before the drive, when I found a manila envelope in his closet, hidden inside a pair of boots. It was filled with photos. Of us. Of our house. Of me shopping, driving, at work. And a note. It said TikTok. I confronted Josh. He froze like I had caught him with blood on his hands. But instead of denying anything, he just whispered, "I'll fix this." Then he hugged me like he was saying goodbye. That night he packed a bag. Told me we were going on a trip. Just the two of us. No phones. No distractions. "Trust me," he said. And so I did. Now, 3 days into that trip, we were being followed by someone who clearly didn't want to be seen. And Josh. He was too calm for someone being chased. He was ready for it. Almost like he'd been expecting it. "What did you do?" I finally asked, voice shaking as we sped through the long, pine-lined road. "I'll tell you everything," he said, still gripping my hand. "Just not now." That wasn't enough. I wanted answers. But something in his tone, broken, desperate, kept me from yelling. The SUV was still behind us, matching our every turn. Josh pulled out his phone, turned it off, and tossed it into the forest as we passed a sharp curve. "Why did you do that?" I asked. "They're tracking us. Through anything. Phones, GPS, maybe even this rental car." I looked at him. "Who is they?" Josh didn't answer. Instead, he did something that shook me to my core. He leaned in, kissed my hand softly, and whispered, "I love you, Rachel. No matter what happens." I felt my heart drop. It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said it, like this might be the last time he ever could. Suddenly, the SUV sped up. It was now right on our tail. Josh reached over and slammed his hand on the dashboard. "Take the next dirt road now." I swerved without thinking, tires screeching as we hit the rocky path off the main road. Trees blurred by. My hands were shaking on the wheel. The SUV followed. I could hear branches snapping as it tried to stay behind us. Josh pulled something out of his backpack. A flash drive. "If we don't make it," he said, shoving it into my hoodie pocket, "give this to Agent Warren. FBI office. Helena. Do not trust anyone else." Before I could ask more, a loud sound cracked behind us, like metal crunching. I looked back. The SUV had flipped over. Smoke rising. We were still alive. For now. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because when I stopped the car, stepped out to catch my breath, and looked inside the wreckage, I saw something that made me fall to my knees. And that's when I knew Josh hadn't just been hiding from strangers. He was hiding from someone we both knew. Someone I trusted. Someone from my past. I stumbled back, choking on the smoke, my heart thudding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Josh ran to me and grabbed my shoulders. "Don't look. Get in the car." But it was too late. Because I had already seen who was behind the wheel of the wrecked SUV. It was Evan. My brother. The same Evan who had walked me down the aisle at our wedding. The same Evan who had babysat our daughter when we needed date nights. The same Evan who had disappeared 5 years ago after being caught embezzling from the hospital where he worked. He was supposed to be in federal prison. I couldn't move. My knees buckled, and I dropped to the forest floor shaking. "What is Evan doing here?" I finally asked, staring at Josh. "What the hell is going on?" Josh looked away, his face pale. "That's what I was trying to protect you from." "Josh, did you know he was out?" "Yes. I found out a week ago." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because he was looking for you, Rachel. Not me." I backed away, suddenly unsure of everything. My husband. My brother. My own past. Josh grabbed my hand again. "We don't have time. He's not alone. The car was just meant to scare us. They're closing in." I looked back at the SUV. Evan wasn't moving. His face was covered in blood, but he was breathing. I couldn't leave him there. I ran to the wreckage, yanked the door open and tried to pull him out. Josh screamed, "Rachel, stop." But it was too late. Evan's eyes snapped open, and he grabbed my wrist. His grip was ice. "I told you," he rasped, blood in his mouth. "I told you I'd find you." Then he passed out. Josh yanked me away. "He was tracking us, Rachel. Using an old number you used when you were in college. One that was tied to your parents' address." I blinked. "Wait. You mean this whole thing started because of me?" Josh looked down. "It didn't start because of you. But you're the only one who can end it." I didn't know what that meant yet. But I was about to find out. We got back in the car, and this time I drove without asking questions. We didn't go to the cabin. We didn't go back home. We headed for a place I hadn't seen in 10 years. My childhood home. Because Josh had figured out what I hadn't dared to believe. Evan wasn't after revenge on Josh. He wanted something that had been buried for years. Something I'd forgotten. Or tried to. The drive was silent except for the hum of tires against the road. Josh finally broke the silence. "I hacked into Evan's encrypted files last week. He was planning something called Project Hiraeth. That flash drive in your pocket? It has the blueprint. It's not just about you. It's about a list of people your brother's been working with, some in law enforcement, some not." "Why would my brother be involved in something like that?" Josh looked at me, eyes full of sorrow. "Because Evan blames you." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Blames me for what?" Josh looked away. "The fire." My hands tightened on the wheel. I hadn't thought about the fire in years. It had killed our parents. It had left Evan badly burned. And it had started the night he found that letter. The letter I never wanted anyone to read. The one that told the truth about what happened that night. About me. And about a choice I made that cost us everything. Josh reached into the glove box and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. "You said you burned this." I lied. I pulled the car over. My vision was blurred from tears. I couldn't breathe. "Why would you keep it?" I shouted. "Why would you hold on to the one thing that could destroy me?" Because I knew Evan would come looking one day. And I knew he'd want to finish what he started. He handed it to me. The letter. Written in my own handwriting. And as I read the first line, the memory came rushing back like a wave. I was the reason the fire started. Not directly. But I left something burning that night. A candle. A stupid candle. Because I was sneaking out to meet someone. Someone I wasn't supposed to love. And Evan had found out. The letter was my confession. But I never mailed it. I just buried it under guilt for years. And now, Evan had finally come for what he thought I owed. Josh touched my shoulder. We have to go to the FBI now, before someone else finds us. But just as I put the car in drive, my phone buzzed. No signal. Just one alert. A video. I tapped it. It was live. Evan. Awake. Bloodied. Smiling. Holding a photo of our daughter. I warned you, Rachel, he whispered. You left me in that fire. Now, I'm going to take back what you stole from me. I dropped the phone. Josh turned to me. We need to find her. Now. And that's when I realized. Our daughter wasn't at summer camp like I thought. Evan had her. He'd had her all along. And I had no idea who I could trust anymore. Not even Josh. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. The road ahead blurred as tears filled my eyes. Josh tried to steady me, but I shook him off. You said she was at camp. You swore she was safe. She was, he said quickly, his voice tight. I dropped her off myself. I saw her go inside. I even talked to the staff. Then how does Evan have her? I screamed, slamming the brakes as we reached a red light. Josh didn't answer. Instead, he looked down. And that silence, it said everything. You knew, I whispered, the horror sinking in. You knew he was coming for her. No, he said, finally meeting my eyes. I knew he might try. That's why I paid extra for security at the camp. I thought I was ahead of him. But I was wrong. I stared at him, my mind spinning. My little girl, our Hannah, was gone. And my husband, the man I trusted most, had known there was a risk and never told me. You let me believe we were just taking a trip, I said quietly. You let me pack snacks and a cooler like this was a vacation. You let me laugh in the car. Josh swallowed hard. Because if I told you the truth, you would have panicked. And when you panic, Rachel, you make dangerous decisions. Like marrying you? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Josh flinched like I'd slapped him. The light turned green. I drove. No one said anything for the next 5 miles. Then Josh's phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. A man's voice, disguised by a modulator, crackled through. Drive to 47th and Hollow Ridge. Abandon the car. Walk north. Then the line went dead. Josh didn't hesitate. We're going. We don't follow instructions from kidnappers, I snapped. We go to the police. Josh turned slowly toward me, his jaw clenched. And what do you think will happen when Evan shows them the letter? I froze. Of course. The letter. My confession. My childhood mistake that became a family tragedy. Evan knew exactly how to trap me. He had Hannah. And a truth I'd buried deep enough to rot. If I went to the police, he'd show them the letter, frame me for the fire, and my daughter would grow up thinking her mother was a killer. So I drove. We pulled onto a dirt path near Hollow Ridge and parked under a bridge. The area was quiet, too quiet. No traffic, no people, just thick woods and wind. Leave your phone, Josh said. I nodded. We dropped our devices in the glove box and started walking. The air smelled like pine and old secrets. I remembered this place. This was where Evan used to bring me when we were kids. When he still smiled. When he still loved me. Now it felt like a graveyard. We walked a mile before we saw a rusted van parked crooked under a tree. Its back door swung open with a loud creak. And sitting inside, tied to a chair, a blindfold over her eyes, was Hannah. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. Rachel, stop. Josh yelled, but I was already inside. I reached for her, pulling the blindfold off. Honey, it's me. It's Mommy. But Hannah screamed. Loud. Terrified. No. Don't touch me. I stepped back, stunned. Hannah, it's me, baby, it's okay. She shook her head violently, eyes wide. You're not real. He said you were dead. He said you burned. My heart shattered. That's when I heard the click of the van door. It slammed shut. And the lock turned. We were trapped. Then a voice came through a small speaker overhead. Now we're all here, Evan's voice crooned. The liar. The betrayer. And the legacy. Josh banged on the door. What do you want, Evan? Just tell us what you want. Evan laughed softly. I want Rachel to remember. Every single thing. I turned to the front seat. A single envelope lay on the dashboard. I reached for it. Inside was a photo, burned at the edges, of me at 17, holding something in my hand. A lighter. And standing behind me, blurry but unmistakable, was Evan. Watching. The photo was taken minutes before the fire. It was proof. And I had never seen it before. My legs gave out. Josh caught me before I hit the floor. I didn't mean to, I whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was just a candle. I didn't know the curtain would catch. The speaker hissed again. Say it louder, Rachel. For your daughter. For the record. Then the floor of the van jolted. We were moving. The van had been rigged remotely. Where are you taking us? Josh yelled. Evan didn't answer. The van sped up. Faster and faster. Then the speaker buzzed again. We're going back to where it started. The house. The fire. The truth. I clutched Hannah's hand, finally steadying her. I won't let anything happen to you, I whispered. She looked up at me, tears streaking her cheeks. I don't believe you, she said softly. The van kept moving. And I knew this story was far from over. Because Evan hadn't just kidnapped us. He was dragging us back into the fire. And this time, not all of us would make it out. The van swerved sharply, jerking us sideways. Hannah screamed and clutched my arm. I pulled her close, wrapping my body around hers like a shield. Josh crawled toward the front, pounding on the divider between us and the driver's seat. But it was solid metal. There was no one driving. Remote controlled. Evan's controlling this from somewhere else, he muttered, wiping blood from his lip. He's playing a game. The speaker buzzed again. Almost there. Evan's voice crackled. Tell me, Rachel. Do you still remember the way the air smelled that night? Do you remember the screaming? I squeezed my eyes shut. I did remember. The fire wasn't supposed to spread that fast. I was 17, angry, stupid, and desperate to scare my foster parents. Just a prank. Just one candle on a flammable curtain. A small spark. But that house went up like a matchstick. And Evan was there. He saw it all. Back then, he'd been my only friend. My only anchor. He helped me cover it up. Swore he'd never tell. Said he understood. But something in him broke that night. Something dark took root. And now, almost 2 decades later, he was finally cashing in on my mistake. The van screeched to a stop. Silence. Then a hiss of hydraulics as the back door unlatched. It slowly creaked open. Light poured in, dim orange flickering. Flames? No. Lanterns. We were in front of the old house. The one that had burned down. But somehow it was back. Exactly how it looked that night. Rebuilt brick by brick. Identical. What the hell? Josh whispered. It's a replica, I said, my voice shaking. He rebuilt it. Exactly the same. Why? The answer was obvious. Because he wanted me to relive it. Every hallway. Every room. Every flame. He was forcing me into my own past. Out. Evan's voice boomed over hidden speakers in the trees. Take the child inside, Rachel. Leave the husband outside. He can watch. No, Josh shouted. I'm not leaving them. But the van door slammed shut again, pushing Josh out and locking him out. Guards appeared from the trees. Masked men dressed in black, all silent, holding stun batons. This was bigger than Evan. He had help. One of them grabbed my arm, motioning for me to move. I'll carry her, I said, lifting Hannah into my arms. She was shaking. So was I. Inside, the house was exactly how I remembered it. The same ugly wallpaper. The same creaky stairs. The same cheap yellow couch. Even the smell. Smoke. Dust. And lemon cleaner. It hit me like a fist. Welcome home, Evan's voice said. A door slammed upstairs. I flinched. He's here, Hannah whispered. No, I lied. He's not. But she was right. He was here. And he was watching. Go to the basement, the voice ordered. I hesitated. That basement was where I hid that night. It was where I left Evan. Told him to lie. Told him it was the only way we'd survive. That basement was his grave. Or so I thought. Now he wanted me to return to it. I carried Hannah down the narrow stairs, each one creaking under my weight. She buried her face in my shoulder. At the bottom, a single light bulb swung from the ceiling and taped to the wall. Photos. Dozens of them. All of me. Me at work. Me dropping Hannah at school. Me asleep in bed. He'd been watching us for years. Behind me, the basement door slammed shut. I screamed and dropped to my knees, shielding Hannah. Then a voice whispered from the darkness. You abandoned me, Rachel. He stepped out. Evan. Older now. His once blonde hair now streaked with gray. But those eyes, those angry, hollow, haunted eyes, were exactly the same. I kept your secret, he said. I buried what I saw. And you moved on. You got a family. A house. A new life. He stepped closer, holding up something small. The lighter. The one I used that night. I kept this, he said, as a reminder of who you really are. I shook my head. I was a kid. So was I, he roared, his face inches from mine. I lost everything. My family was blamed for that fire. Do you know what it did to my parents when they thought I lied for you? Do you know what it did to me? Hannah whimpered. He looked down at her and paused. She looks like you, he said quietly. Don't touch her, I whispered. He didn't move. Instead, he dropped the lighter at my feet. Light it again. What? Prove you're still the same person. Light it. Burn this place to the ground. Again. I looked at Hannah, then back at Evan. I'm not that girl anymore, I said. Then you'll both die in the dark. He turned toward the fuse box and flipped the main switch. The light snapped off. We were in total blackness. Then I heard the hiss of gas. He was flooding the basement. Josh's voice screamed from outside. He was pounding the windows, desperate to get in. But it was too late. The gas was everywhere. And the only way out was up the wooden stairs. But I knew they were soaked in kerosene. One spark. One wrong move. And we'd all go up in flames. I pulled Hannah to me, whispering in her ear. When I say run, don't stop. She nodded, tears wetting my neck. I waited, listened, and then, a flicker, a flame. Evan had lit the lighter, and he was walking toward us. Closer, closer. That's when I did it. I screamed louder than I ever had. Now Josh. Glass shattered above us. The window. And then, boom. The explosion wasn't fire, not yet. It was Josh. He'd shattered the small basement window with a crowbar and hurled something through. A metal fire extinguisher, followed by a heavy rope knotted into a makeshift ladder. Rachel, he shouted. Get out. Now. Smoke was already curling into the air from the far corner, where Evan had dropped the lighter, right onto the kerosene-soaked floor. Flames leapt up like they'd been waiting for this moment. Evan screamed, whether in rage, pain, or both, I couldn't tell. But I grabbed the rope with one arm and wrapped Hannah in the other. I started to climb, one rung at a time, the heat clawing at our legs. The wood behind us groaned. The stairs were catching fire. And below, Evan was just standing there. Watching. Burning. He wasn't moving. Come on, come on. Josh's voice cracked as he reached in, grabbing Hannah under her arms and pulling her through. I followed, scraping my legs bloody against the shattered window frame, choking on smoke. We tumbled out into the grass. Josh collapsed beside us, coughing hard, and pulled us both into his arms. We were alive. But Evan. I turned back toward the basement. The fire was spreading fast. Windows were glowing orange, black smoke pouring out like some beast was inside. There was no sign of Evan coming up. No shouting. No banging. Just fire. He wanted to burn. He wanted that house to go up in flames with him inside it. A perfect, poetic ending. And it did. The walls groaned, the roof caved in, and in minutes, the replica of the house that changed my life was nothing but ash and smoke. Josh was dialing 911, his hands trembling. Hannah clung to me, crying softly into my neck. That was when the headlights appeared. 2 sets. From opposite directions. Sleek, black SUVs with tinted windows and no plates. They didn't come fast. They glided. Deliberate. Silent. I stood, shielding Hannah again. Josh cursed under his breath. I don't think this is over. The SUVs stopped 20 feet from us. Doors opened. 6 men stepped out. Black suits. Earpieces. No visible weapons, but I didn't need to see them to know they were armed. And in the center, a woman. Tall, poised, early 60s, in a gray silk suit and heels, walking across the grass like the ground wasn't soaked in gasoline and blood and ash. She stopped 3 feet from me, looked me in the eye, and smiled faintly. "Rachel," she said, her voice calm, cultured. "You've had quite a night." I didn't answer, because something in her smile felt familiar. "I'm sorry about Evan," she continued. "He was brilliant, but unstable." She glanced back at the burning house. "Still effective." "Who are you?" Josh asked, stepping in front of us. The woman tilted her head. "We're the people who keep secrets buried." She looked at me again. "And you, Rachel, have been keeping one very important secret for a very long time." I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just about Evan. He was just a puppet. A test. She walked slowly around me, like she was inspecting something she'd bought. "You see that fire all those years ago? The one that killed 3 people and left a whole town grieving? You covered it up. Cleverly. But the truth has a way of finding light." She stopped in front of me again. "And now we're going to need your help." I laughed, bitter and low. "Help? You put my daughter in danger." She smiled again. "Yes. And she survived. Which proves you're ready." "Ready for what?" The woman leaned in and whispered, "For what comes next." Behind us, the second SUV's door opened. A small case was pulled out and handed to her. She popped it open, revealing a slim manila file. My name was on the front. "Inside," she said, tapping it, "is everything you really did. All the evidence Evan didn't even know existed. Footage. Reports. Witnesses. It's enough to ruin your life, Rachel." She snapped the folder shut. "Unless you agree to our terms." "What terms?" Josh asked. The woman stepped back, straightened her jacket, and said simply, "You work for us now." Then turned to leave. We stood there in stunned silence. The flames behind us were dying, but the fire inside me was just beginning, because I wasn't going to be anyone's pawn again. And if they thought they could drag me back into that nightmare, they were going to regret everything. They thought they had me, standing there, soot-stained, bleeding, my daughter trembling in my arms. They thought I was broken. That fear would drive me to obedience. That guilt would shackle me to silence. They were wrong. 3 days passed. Josh, Hannah, and I were relocated under the guise of witness protection. A quiet home in upstate New York, far from the ashes of that twisted house. Hannah played in the backyard like nothing happened. Kids are resilient like that. Josh hovered near the windows constantly, expecting black SUVs to roll up at any minute. I waited too, but not with fear, with purpose. Because that file, the one the woman waved like a sword, I stole it. While she circled us in the smoke, while her henchmen looked the other way, I took the real file out of her open briefcase and swapped it with a fake one I had buried in a plastic bag behind our fence weeks earlier. Evan had left breadcrumbs in his madness. He told me once, "We're all part of something bigger, Rachel. But you were supposed to lead it." I thought he was raving. Now I wasn't so sure. That file didn't just have my name in it. It had dozens. Hundreds. Some crossed out. Some underlined. Some marked terminated. It had photos of places I'd never been, but somehow recognized. People I'd never met, but whose names haunted old emails I thought were long deleted. And it had one final note. Handwritten. "If Rachel refuses, initiate protocol Duskfall." Whatever that was, it wasn't good. So I did the unthinkable. I reached out to someone I never thought I'd contact again. His name was Matthew Crane, my ex-boss. CIA retired. He picked up the burner phone after 3 rings. "Rachel, I hoped you were dead." "Charming," I said. "You still drink bourbon with 2 cubes?" A long silence. Then, "Where are you?" I gave him nothing. Just coordinates for a drop. 2 days later, I left the file inside a hollowed-out Bible at a bus station in Albany. I watched from a bench as a girl in a yellow hoodie picked it up and vanished. 2 more days. Then came the boom. Not literal, but loud. News outlets broke stories about a secret division inside a global security firm. Anonymous leaks. Financial trails. Surveillance programs that didn't exist until they did. Names fell, including the woman from the SUV. Margot Vale, former director of a rogue intelligence network called Netherlight. She vanished hours before an arrest warrant was issued. No one's seen her since. I don't think she's dead. I hope she's not. Because if she's out there, she'll come back. And I'll be waiting. Josh and I took Hannah far away, changed names, identities. Again. But I'm not hiding anymore. I still have the rest of the files. Still have the names. Still have the truth. And if anyone ever comes knocking again, if someone else tries to use us, I won't run. I won't drive. I won't say nothing. I'll fight. Because this story, it started with fear. It ends with fire. And this time, I hold the match.